Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast. I'm your host, Nick Belsky, joined as always by Nick Horwat, and we got a great show for you folks today. Kyle Dubas has been working the phones all week long, making 2 trades since our last full episode. We will break down both of those trades and look ahead to some that are still yet to come. And then the top pick in the 2026 NHL draft is coming to Pennsylvania. How important would it be, though, if he was able to stay here after the draft next year? We'll talk about all that and more on today's episode of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Let's kick things off with the most recent trade that went down on Sunday afternoon. The Penguins acquiring goaltender Arturs Silovs from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for Chase Stillman and a 2027 fourth round pick. Now, for those of you that don't know, Chase Stillman came to the Penguins organization 4 months ago as part of the Cody Glass trade. So a quick turnaround in the Pens organization for Stillman, and it is a fourth goaltender, which we talked about a little bit last week, saying it would make sense if the Penguins brought somebody in to be a little bit more protection for those young guys just behind Tristan Jarry.
Works as protection and, truthfully, I think bolsters the possibilities for the future of the position in Pittsburgh. I mean, we already spoke last episode highly about the possibilities for Blomqvist and Murashov, and now you're adding another young goalie to the mix with a good bit of potential. I mean, he nearly stole the second round of the playoffs in 2024 against the Edmonton Oilers, pushing them to 7 as the third string in Vancouver. And then just this past year, leading the Abbotsford Canucks, I believe they are, to a Calder Cup as the playoff MVP. So those are big nods coming into, an organization that isn't struggling at the goalie position, but is certainly looking to the future for it. I mean, they dealt away Nedeljkovic already. Jarry's still around. Who knows for how much longer? But if it's a Jarry, Silovs 1-2 going into next season, that's not bad. That gives a little bit of a buffer for Blomqvist and Murashov to continue growing, and then seeing where they go from there, and seeing if Jarry gets dealt away, and then it's Silovs and the other two fighting for the future of the position. I think there are only good things to come from this trade, even if he is being viewed as a backup for now.
Yeah, you mentioned the Calder Cup run, 931 save percentage for Silovs and a 2.01 goals against average. He was very good this year in the Calder Cup playoffs, and the 2024 playoffs, I'll just say this. It was very Alex Nedeljkovic-esque, right? 291 goals against average, but a sub 900 save percentage. However, he went 5-5. Yeah. The team around him made it so he just had to do just enough to get them to 7 games in that second round series against the Edmonton Oilers. I will call this the perfect addition to that goaltending room. We talked last week that, they need to add a veteran, and while Silovs, I think, barely reaches that kind of status, it's a guy that is injury insurance for Tristan Jarry. He can get sent back to the AHL if one of Yoel Blomqvist or Sergei Murashov show that they are ready for that next level, at the very least, ready to have a run or multiple opportunities at that next level. And also at the same time, it's a guy that, gives you the perfect go-between. So I really like this addition for the Penguins. I think that it is a very low-risk move. I mean, a fourth-round pick in 2027 is what it is. Chase Stillman, I guess we can start the Cody Glass trade tree with Chase Stillman now turning into Arturs Silovs. But at the end of the day, the Penguins are now 5 goaltenders deep, and it's a lot of questionable goaltenders, like goaltenders we don't quite know what they are at the NHL level. Even Tristan Jarry, who's at the top of that list, there's a lot of question marks as to what he's going to be this year. Is he going to be the guy that we saw at the beginning of last season, which was way worse than NHL level? Or is he going to be the guy that we saw at the end of last season, which unfortunately screwed the Penguins out of a top 5 pick and is part of the reason that they drafted 11th overall instead of, 5th, 6th, maybe even 7th. But at the end of the day, there's so many questions around him. There's questions around Silovs and what he is at the NHL level. Is he just what he's shown, which is around a 900 goaltender, certainly a backup, but somebody that can do what Ned did and, if given the opportunity, keep your team afloat with good play from everyone else. And then you have those two young rookies matched with Filip Larsson. It's an interesting goaltending room, and it's something that, again, I'll sound like a broken record, but I harken back to what Jason Spezza said last year. They want to make sure that when these kids are called up, they're going to be ready to stay up. And this just gives you the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely. They want to make sure that they're ready for that. And with Blomqvist, like I said before, they just kind of threw him to the wolves pretty quickly. I don't know if it hurt his acceleration into an NHL goaltender or if it helped it, but he got his feet wet in the NHL kind of in a harsh way, but has a base to build on. Murashov just continues to look impressive everywhere he goes. Silovs is coming off a great year and isn't far removed from, pretty much nearly upsetting the eventual Western Conference champions. So he's good pedigree to come in as a 24-year-old netminder. There's still plenty of time for him to even blossom into something bigger and better. There's still all kinds of growth to happen there.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, you have Filip Larsson, like you said, or you have Taylor Gauthier, if he impresses again at the AHL level once again and earns an NHL deal, maybe. There's still growth that can happen at the goalie position. It went from, in a matter of seconds, it feels like, went from nothing, a bunch of, scuttling to, we have options. The Penguins have options. And I think the more options you have, it's like Jesse Marshall said a couple weeks ago, you're getting lottery tickets. One of them's bound to hit. And at least in those first three names, in terms of the younger ones, there's a couple of lottery tickets per name there.
Yeah.
Eventually.
It's getting very crowded in the minors, though. So I'm wondering how long it takes for the Penguins to decide to pull the trigger on one of these young guys coming up to the NHL level. I mean, especially if they all perform well, you can only get so much ice time. Sergei Murashov doesn't belong in the ECHL.
No.
We saw that last year. You look at it now, you have Filip Larsson, who it's going to be hard to send him to the ECHL considering what he did. Joel Blomqvist was playing NHL hockey last year. You're not going to send him down there. So there's going to be a large battle for ice time in the Penguins system when it comes to the goaltending position. And again, Silovs, I'm not really looking at it for more than what it is. It is a placeholder. He is up there to kind of keep a seat warm for one of these young guys, and he might get traded by the end of this year. He literally might. But while he's here, I'm hoping he plays some good hockey, and I'm hoping that he's ready to stop a lot of pucks because the defense still has a lot of work to be done at this point of the offseason. But there was a little bit of work that was done earlier in the week. That right side just keeps getting busier and busier. The Penguins acquiring Matt Dumba from the Dallas Stars, as well as a second-round pick. Now, I talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, Horwat. I want to get your opinion on this. What do you think about the Penguins bringing in Matt Dumba?
I don't hate it. I didn't look into his contract quite yet.
1 year deal.
1 year left? Yeah, I don't hate that at all. The Penguins are in that sort of position where they're not trying to add on guys that have a future, or that have a long-term contract, I should say. And Matt Dumba kind of fits the mold of he's going to fill space. He's going to take up a role while, once again, these guys like, I know I might be getting sides of the ice wrong, but while the guys like Owen Pickering, Harrison Brunick, and among other names, the defensemen in the minor leagues and in the prospect pool, as they continue to grow, much like the way you're seeing Silovs is the way I'm looking at Matt Dumba, placeholder. He'll come in, he'll play his minutes, and he'll probably play good hockey. It is Matt Dumba. I mean, also the age is a thing where he's trying to find that one last NHL deal likely. So he's got something to prove coming to Pittsburgh, regardless of where he plays in the lineup in terms of first, second, or third line. It's going to be a fascinating experiment almost, but also just a placeholder position. He's another guy that if he's playing well, could easily be traded at the deadline to a contender to help him go on to win a cup for himself and to help the Penguins bring back something they think they need down the line.
Yeah, now I have to amend a statement that I said on Wednesday or Thursday, whenever the trade went down. I had to release that quick video. I likened it to the Kevin Hayes acquisition, and I still feel like that is the case, but now I think it's a combination. It's a combination of the Kevin Hayes trade last year and the Matt Grzelcyk signing. The Kevin Hayes trade because you're doing it in order to get that second round pick. That's the reason that the Penguins took on Matt Dumba. They're trying to help the Dallas Stars open up some salary cap space, and by doing so, they're getting paid a second-round pick for their troubles. So in that way, it is like Kevin Hayes. But I also think as a player, it's very much like Matt Grzelcyk. You think of Matt Grzelcyk's time in Boston, how it ended. He struggled at the very end, so much so that he was a healthy scratch in the playoffs. Matt Dumba struggled a lot in Dallas, so much so that he was a healthy scratch in the playoffs. You're hoping on a one-year deal, he's able to come in here, kind of find his footing a little bit. Matt Grzelcyk, let's not make any mistake, didn't have a phenomenal season, but what did he do? He built up a lot of the discussion around him as a player that can really help accelerate your power play. He did that for the Penguins, and that's why there was a lot of trade interest around him at the trade deadline. Now, Kyle Dubas elected not to trade him. Maybe there wasn't a trade out there for him, but at the very least, you turned him into somebody that was undesirable and turned him into somebody that at the very least was looked at as one of the top 20 trade pieces at the deadline. I think that's exactly the route that they're hoping for with Matt Dumba. So he comes in, he is that combination of the Kevin Hayes acquisition and the Matt Grzelcyk in the lineup, except he is on the right side. And that's where I'm a little confused, because you look at the right side. We'll get to Erik Karlsson in a minute. He's over there. Chris Letang is obviously over there. Connor Clifton, who was acquired a couple of weeks ago, is over there. Matt Dumba is now over there. We have talked a couple of times about Jack St. Ivany getting an opportunity this year. He's a right shot defenseman that really hasn't played much on the left side. And then you mentioned Harrison Brunick. The reason this kind of hurts me a little bit, it hurts my soul a little bit, is it means we're not going to see Harrison Brunick at the NHL level. I thought going into this summer, maybe, just maybe, if Erik Karlsson finds a new home, that opens up an opportunity for Harrison Brunick to stick at the NHL level. He was so close last year in training camp to, at the very least, getting that 9-game sample size because of how well he played in the summer and then into training camp. It just looks like the hill is too steep for him to climb, and he cannot go to the AHL. So it feels like he is destined. And again, things can still happen. It is early in the summer, and as we'll talk about, there are still trades to be made. It feels like he's destined to go back to the WHL.
It does. I do still think there's that slim chance of the 9-game sample size. I don't know about anything else, because the Penguins are in that sort of experimental area. Hey, Matt Dumba, I know we just picked you up. You're going to take the first 9 games off, though. We're going to see what this kid can do. This would be a conversation you have before opening night, though, essentially.
Yeah.
You saw what he did in the preseason. You saw what he did at camp. As a veteran yourself, you'll get the next 70 plus games or even up to the trade deadline, 50 plus, to get yourself acclimated and prove that you could still cut it for a team looking to shoot for a Stanley Cup. Maybe Matt Dumba takes that nicely. Who knows? It's tough to say. I mean,
I think it'd be Clifton more than it'd be Dumba. Sure, I think if Karlsson's gone, it would be Letang, Dumba, Brunick, if that were the case.
Yeah, and I was playing this more along the lines of if Karlsson stays. But then if he does get traded, then you are looking at having that conversation with Clifton. And I think either way, it is, any hockey mind, and that includes players, if you're joining the Penguins this year, you know what's going on. Yeah. You know it's a different situation than normal. You know you're getting an opportunity to play with Sidney Crosby, to play with Evgeny Malkin, to play with Chris Letang, to play with Erik Karlsson possibly, and you're not going to do much winning, though.
And you get to go to Sweden.
You do get a nice trip to Sweden out of it. So you get those little opportunities, but then it's, you're not here to win. You're not on a cup contender. You play the right way, though, maybe you get sent to one. And if you not necessarily play the Penguins game in terms of taking the bullet of sitting out a couple games so a kid can get an experiment. But again, this is also me just kind of big braining it a bit. And telling veterans, hey, you're going to sit for 9 games, which is tough, but also a new head coach.
Yeah, new head coach. There is a track record of the Penguins doing what's in the best interest of the player, even if it's not in the best interest of the team. Remember, they got Luke Schenn, and Luke Schenn was like, I would really rather play on a cup contender, and the Penguins made it happen. Now, yes, they were compensated for it very nicely, But they acquired Luke Schenn because they wanted Luke Schenn. They thought he was a bigger body. They thought he was a little bit meaner, and they wanted him on the back end. They thought that was part of the solution on their blue line over the next couple of years. He came in and said, guys, I really want to compete for a cup, and I think we all know you're not going to. And the Penguins did him a solid and sent him to the Winnipeg Jets. I think veterans will notice that and will say, hey, if we play ball with the Penguins, Kyle Dubas is open to putting us in a solid position come trade deadline time if we play ball and we do our jobs, whether that's sit out a couple of games and be the Chad Ruhwedel of everything, where you're called on sparingly, and when you are, you play well, or whether that's hey, we really want to see what Harrison Brunick has to offer. And if he plays the 9 games and sticks around, I'm sorry, he's taking your spot. We'll find a new home for you. But as of right now, that's what we need. I don't know if that's the route they'll take, because again, it goes back to the Spezza thing of, are you really going to say, hey, we want to make sure he's ready, and then be like, well, 9 games, let's see if he's ready. If not, we'll send him back west. We'll send him to the WHL. I don't know. Maybe it's still on the table. It just feels to me that right now, especially because I feel like Jack St. Ivany is going to get an opportunity early this year, it feels to me that the Harrison Brunick at the NHL level thing is not something that we're going to see this year. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope that I can come eat my words on this show. But it feels like just with that move, the likelihood of Harrison Brunick being at the NHL level, even if it's for a sample size this year, that first 9 games, it feels like it is much less likely. Now, from trades that happened to trades that could still happen, let's talk a little bit about 3 players that have been on the trade block, and I think everybody knows who we're going to talk about here, and we'll play a little safe or shopped. So, Horwat, you and I will determine whether or not we believe this person is safe and will be with the Penguins by opening night in 2025, or if they will be shopped before opening night in October. Let's start with what I would deem the simple one, and that is Erik Karlsson. Right shot defenseman, $10 million salary cap for the next 2 years, but the bonus is paid, so actual money is much lower. Is he safe or is he shopped in your eyes?
Well, real quick, I would like to say neither of them are simple, or none of these are simple. That's just my 2 cents. But as for Erik Karlsson, I think it's shopped, but it wouldn't shock me if he's safe. I'll lean on shopped because it makes the most sense to shop him out now rather than giving him the start of the season to kind of putter around again. If you're the Penguins, you want to. No offense to Erik Karlsson, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but you don't want to risk a decline in production or a further decline in production or a decline in skill set. You just don't want to take that risk. You want to just look at those 2 years and those numbers and say, he had spurts of greatness. We all saw it. He can still bring that to a team, wherever it may be. And am I picking a team? Because I got ideas on teams.
Yeah, if you said shopped, give me a team too.
I think Vegas.
I think
the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, first of all, they take big swings on everybody.
Yeah, they do.
They already got Mitch Marner, and they're losing Pietrangelo, probably for his career. Suddenly, a spot on the top right side of their blue line is opening up. The cash is opening up a little bit. You still have to do some gymnastics to make it all work, but that's where the retentions come into play. That's where the moves of whoever's coming back to Pittsburgh comes into play. Listen, Erik Karlsson left San Jose because he wanted to join a winner. He's not getting that with Pittsburgh. Vegas they're a team that goes for it every season. 1 year it was successful. Their first year was darn close.
Yeah.
They're a team that is hungry every year, and I'll tell you what, throwing the playmaking skills next to the playmaking skills of Mitch Marner, one way or the other, whether it is on 5-on-5 or on the power play, setting up Jack Eichel with Mark Stone floating around. William Karlsson's looking for a bounce back year, and Mitch Marner, for what it's worth, is not looking for a bounce back year, but is just looking to dominate this season probably. Vegas would be a scary team if they added Erik Karlsson, and I think that would, in my head, makes the most sense in terms of they always go for it. He fits the role that is just opening up for them, and that he would look fantastic on an offensive squad like that.
Yeah, that is an interesting one. I hadn't thought of Vegas. I don't know why, because they're the most perpetual big name hunters in
Yeah.
the entire league. And you mentioned winners. I could use the same word to describe their winning since 2017. They are the biggest perpetual winners
Mm-hmm.
in hockey since their inception. So it does make a lot of sense. And, the retention thing, I completely agree. If the Penguins are going to wait until this season begins, you already have to retain a hefty amount just to get decent value out of Erik Karlsson. So I'm gonna agree with you and say it's shopped. I don't think he's gonna be in this lineup when it comes to the beginning of October. But I'm going in a different direction as far as where he ends up. Vegas is interesting, and I do think he will go west. I think that he will head west, but I think he's heading north a little bit too. And if you're looking at a cup contender, there are very few teams that are as built and as set as the Winnipeg Jets. They have the cap space right now. They need a little bit more offense from their blue line. They do have some standouts when it comes to the defensive side of the ice. I mean, Neil Pionk, Josh Morrissey, they got their guys over there, and they certainly have the talent on the forward side of the ice. But it just feels, and I knew we were going to do this segment, and I looked at Winnipeg, and I was like, man, it just feels like if there's a team that he fits on outside of the Dallas Stars, but I know Jim Nill has nixed that enough times.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's going to be the Winnipeg Jets.
I don't hate the Winnipeg option. The one thing I do hate about Winnipeg, I have two things I hate about Winnipeg. One, what was the percentage from the Athletic? Like 43% of players have them at like the top of their no trade list.
Yeah.
Some stupid number.
But here's the thing with the no trade list. Actually, go ahead, finish. And then I'll do that.
The second one is I gave Winnipeg a lot of hope going into the postseason. I thought they were finally going to do it. I thought they finally had their year ahead of them. And Connor Hellebuck just doesn't know how to stop a beach ball on the road. It was proven in both rounds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Erik Karlsson helps that along.
No, he does not. He does not at all.
But I mean, other than that, let's say Connor Hellebuck finds his game on the road, and suddenly you have a real weapon there.
Yeah.
And Erik Karlsson does make sense for that. I also always pause on. I know I'm continuing to ramble while you had something. I also pause on guys going to Canada after they had already left, just because they kind of see the differences. And like I said, those no trade lists always come into play. They're always factors. And ultimately, for Erik Karlsson, at least, he will decide where he goes, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Well, Karlsson's been gone for a long time. So going back to Canada, I think, distance makes the heart grow fonder a little bit. But I will go back to the point that you made about that being atop of everybody's no trade list. Erik Karlsson has a full no trade list. He gets to cherry pick where he's going. But I think with that in mind, he's going to want to pick a place that is ready-made. He's not going to want to pick a place that it's like, well, I can join them and I can maybe see if things go right, if they get some good bounces. Like, he doesn't want to go to the Rangers, right? Oh. 2 years ago, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. They just got Mike Sullivan. Oh, maybe they'll get back. No, he doesn't want to join that. And that's even without the fact that I don't think him and Mike Sullivan, it's not copacetic right there. But he's going to want to select a team that he feels is on the doorstep because he swung and missed whenever he waved it to come to Pittsburgh. And time is of the essence for him when it comes to winning a championship. Find me a team that fits more than the Winnipeg Jets. I don't think you can. Vegas is a good one. And I will say, if he does go to Vegas, by God, do not take Noah Hannafin off your top power play unit for Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson is far from a power play specialist. If I've learned anything in 2 years, it is that fact. But I think the thing is, we both agree that it's shopped, and I think we're both agreeing that if it's shopped to the Western Conference.
Yeah, I do see people discuss the Ottawa return. It's fascinating. It is a different organization now.
Yes, it is.
And it's I don't want to say better, but it is a growing organization now.
Yes.
I think that could be a wild card in that situation. I'm not going to put them in the race, but consider that a wild card for that.
If every other contender says, hell no, hey, you can always go home. You can always go home, Erik. You can always go home. So that's the Erik Karlsson of it. Let's talk about Bryan Rust, and I'm going to lead this one off because it's going to be quick.
Yeah.
I think Bryan Rust is safe. I think Bryan Rust will be on this team game 1, night 1 for the Pittsburgh Penguins. However, I think he will be at the tippity top of the trade deadline trade targets list from everyone come next March. But I do think, in the spirit of this, for night 1, Bryan Rust is safe.
This goes back to me saying none of these are easy, because I wouldn't be shocked with that either, but I'm going to roll with shocked as well. I'm going to say it's the discussion we've had 1,000 times. I think he fits perfectly in Buffalo. I think that's a team that needs that sort of jump, that sort of just easy offense, that just consistent. Here's 20 plus goals, maybe another 30, 50 plus points, 40 plus points, maybe 50, however it goes. Just steady offense on a team that maybe they can add rust, but then also still make another blockbuster for a big move.
Yeah, I see that, and I understand why Bryan Rust is in the trade conversations as much as he has been this offseason, because he is that type of player. He is that valuable of a player. But I think because of how much he is valued within the organization, I think he will stick around, at the very least for the beginning of the year. Because what did we see at the end of last year? And again, this might just be me thinking, this might not even be something that is crossing the minds of the Penguins ownership and the Penguins front office over in Cranberry. What did we see at the end of the year? Ville Koivunen and Rutger McGroarty come up. Who was essentially their father in that instance? It wasn't Crosby. Yes, he was helping them along. Yes, he was doing a little extra work. But who was the proud dad every time those guys scored or made a big play? It was Bryan freaking Rust. He is the shepherd of which these young guys need. So I think the Penguins organization has seen that and will hold his value high enough to where they will keep him around at least at the beginning of the season, while they hope these young guys get off on the right foot in their first full professional season. Guys like McGroarty, guys like Koivunen, guys like Pickering, who you're hoping can make a stand, especially with how weak that left side looks right now. So because of all those reasons, I do think he is safe. Not that, it's guaranteed, but I think as of this moment, it feels to me like he's going to be on this roster in 3 months' time when they drop the puck on the 25-26 season. Now, Rickard Rakell, that is, to me, the hardest one here, because he is left on his contract, $5 million, and an 8-team no-trade list, something that Bryan Rust no longer has, which is a no-trade list. Do you think he is safe, or do you think the other Swede is shopped as well?
I'm going to go with shopped again. I'm doing a clean sweep here. This one, and when it comes to teams, though, is the toughest. I think someone will finally match, or at least get close to, Kyle Dubas' request. And I think I keep trying to think of what teams could it be? Who would have interest in Rickard Rakell? Who would want that in their organization, in their lineup? And I keep going out west. I keep going to Southern California. And honestly, either one of those teams makes sense. Anaheim, because he already played there. They seem to just keep taking swings. They're suddenly like, hey, you know what? The playoffs this year.
They're like, they have the young players. They just need the supporting cast.
Yeah, and Rickard Rakell as the returning Rakell for a new team, a new organization almost, perfect for a supporting cast. If it's not Anaheim, LA makes sense just in terms of they just still need more supporting casts. And Andrzej Kopitar is only going to be so good for so much longer. And same with Drew Doughty. And that team every year, I think they could finally beat Edmonton. and yet they can't.
Yeah.
And I think Rickard Rakell would work great for either of those two teams in terms of just good, solid teams that are trying to build something great. And especially with Anaheim, so fascinating what they've done this summer in terms of just, guess what? The rebuild's over now. We're adding, we brought in a huge name behind the bench, regardless of situation, huge name behind the bench to give it all a big go this season. The John Gibson stuff is finally over as well. They don't have to worry about that anymore. Praise be.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with you here. I do think Rickard Rakell is shopped. Would I be surprised to see him on the roster in October? No, because I don't think it is simple to move Rickard Rakell, but I do think that his value is there. Now, as far as teams, I think this could be a consolation prize for the Sabres, because while he isn't, I think, as highly touted as far as what he can do at an advanced age as what Bryan Rust is, I think you trust that Rust is going to be able to, even if the scoring evaporates a little bit, bring a little bit more to the table than Rickard Rakell. We saw what happens when he has a down season, and it's frustrating. But I do think the Buffalo Sabres would say, hey, if Bryan Rust isn't available, we could still use some top-end scoring. And as of right now, that is what Rickard Rakell gives you. So I could see the Sabres, but on a more serious note, because I do think that's a consolation for them. I think they're aiming a little higher. I could see the Columbus Blue Jackets taking a swing. I think that is a place that fits. They got a lot of young guys, similar to Anaheim. They got a lot of young guys. They surprised a lot of people last year. It's time to show that that's something that can stick. And then the one that I think I would label the favorite, and again, this is not insider information. None of the stuff we have said is that it is our gut feeling after looking at everything. Something sticks out about the Minnesota Wild.
Fascinating.
Because right now, they have to figure out what to do with Kirill Kaprizov, and by no means am I saying that is a spot that Rickard Rakell can fill. It's not. But they do have to sign him to a new contract, which is going to take up some salary cap space. You know who else they have to replace potentially after this year? Matt Zuccarello, as well as Vladimir Tarasenko, who signed a one-year deal there. Sometimes getting a player under team control for those years, a top 6 player at that, is a move that you need to preemptively make. And I think that is something that would be very, very appetizing for Bill Guerin. Plus, he has the salary cap space more than he has had in a very, very long time. He has 10 mil at this point still. Adding Rickard Rakell, while not replacing Marco Rossi, because that's still something that's up in the air, it gives you another gun in the top 6. It gives you more firepower in the top 6. So if you do have to bite the bullet and trade Marco Rossi, not saying to the Penguins, I'd like that to be the case. It's certainly not going to be a player-for-player trade with Rakell. But if you have to bite the bullet on Rossi eventually and send him somewhere, you have a little bit more of that offense already backfilled with Rickard Rakell's acquisition.
Very well could be a player-for-player deal there, and then
picks
involved. But
it'd be nice. Yeah, there would certainly be picks involved. But I'm not gonna galaxy brain fantasy GM this entire thing. As much as I'd like to say, yeah, just let Rossi come to Pittsburgh. He could be our third line center this year, and we'll send you Rickard Rakell. I don't see it happening, but I do see Rakell in Minnesota. I think that is a match.
All right. Yeah, I mean, we're not here to play GM and do trade proposals. I mean,
it's kind of what we're doing. We're just finding landing spots.
Yeah, we're finding landing spots. I'm not saying it's Karlsson to Vegas for pieces of this, and this, because I cannot make that work in my
They already traded the Brisson kid, didn't they?
Yeah, he's in New York.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes. So, yeah, we're not here to make proposals. We're just here to give landing spots. And the more I think about Minnesota, you are right about it. It's a good spot for this sort of situation. They're a team that needs to figure it out. When it comes to Kaprizov, by the way, the solution is easy. Here's the blank check. Kirill, fill it in.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The number is not released yet. There will be a number at some point, and it will be an egregiously high number. But when that happens, you're not going to be able to go out there. And what's the going rate for a top 6 winger in next year's free agency? Probably higher than $5 million, I'd have to imagine. And you have Tarasenko. I already went over all that. But yeah.
That's a good destination for him. I do like that. There are more tangents that could be had about next year's free agency and the current names that are not extended at the moment. I'm sure they all will. But, boy, if that doesn't happen and we're looking at the season start and guys like Eichel, McDavid, Kaprizov, and others are not signed to extensions, we could have a very, very, very fun season on our hands across the NHL.
The discourse will be wild, and everybody will be speculating wildly. But that is that segment for us. I had 2 shopped, 1 safe. I had Bryan Rust as the only safe, and you didn't have anybody safe. You said they're all gone. Kyle Dubas is just going to keep the phone
wheeling and dealing.
Exactly. So let us know in the comment section of these 3 players, who is shopped and who is safe. Bryan Rust, Rickard Rakell, and Erik Karlsson. Let's close out this episode with a little bit of news that happened this week. And it's not news about the Penguins, but maybe one day it could be news that pertains to the Penguins. Prospected number 1 overall draft pick, Gavin McKenna, has officially declared that he will be playing for Penn State next year. It's crazy. He's not the only one. He is one of many top CHL standouts to head to college hockey this year. And unless I missed something when I was on the golf course today, Porter Martone is still a shoe that needs to drop at some point in time. He's going to college hockey. We just don't know where yet. So with that, 2025, which was Matthew Schaefer and Erie, and the 2026 first overall picks will both be based in Pennsylvania. The question becomes, does Gavin McKenna stay in Pennsylvania? Now, we all know that we're hoping he doesn't go east and go to the Philadelphia Flyers, but there is something that Jason Greger of Daily Faceoff pointed out, and that is the 21-year rule that took effect when Sidney Crosby was drafted in 2005, exactly 21 years after Mario Lemieux was drafted first overall in 1984. And, well, 2005 when Crosby was drafted, 21 years later is, 2026 with Gavin McKenna, who people are saying is the next phenom, is the next 1.1 to be up there with your McDavids, with your Crosbys. We're not going to go any further than that because Lemieux is a different animal. So is Crosby, to be completely honest. But if that were the case, if Jason Greger is prophesizing here, not just thinking and out loud, and there is a 21-year rule in the Penguins draft Gavin McKenna from Penn State University, what would that do for the Pens organization? I mean, I hate to ask a stupid question because that's what it feels like, but what would that do at that moment in time in 2026?
Well, you got 2 more decades of success on your hands.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not to put that sort of pressure on Gavin McKenna right away. Let's let the kid play college hockey, and I mean, I could talk forever on the recent and hilarious growth of Penn State hockey in the last 5 years. But what Gavin McKenna would do for the Penguins, I mean, first of all, the conspiracy theorists would be all over the place. You're telling me that those 3 just so happen to be 21 years apart? Yeah, I mean, even I might join the conspiracy at that point. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it would at least set up the Penguins for a great deal of success for a good long while. It would at least set that ground, set that base to grow on. Let a kid like Gavin McKenna learn under the tutelage of Sidney Crosby. And I know some of the recent Mario Lemieux ownership reports have been sort of shot down, but if that's still floating around, suddenly Lemieux's back in the fold a bit more. And he's learning under Crosby and Lemieux in a way. And also Lemieux's still around. He's still always welcomed in the arena and in the area because he is the Pittsburgh Penguins. So one way or the other, he could still be learning under Gavin McKenna. Or Gavin McKenna could still be learning under Mario Lemieux. Bare minimum, that sets up the Penguins for the base of success for a long time to come. And it sends Sidney Crosby out in a glorious way, likely. So much fun could happen if that was to occur. Again, it's still a long ways away, but man, get your pitchforks ready and your conspiracy theories rolling because it's very well possible.
Yeah, especially, you look at what Elliot Friedman says. There are 31 teams in the NHL trying to get better this summer. And then there's the Pittsburgh Penguins. So that is something that you look at it and you say, well, tanking is not an exact science anymore. You can't just be the worst team and automatically get the first overall pick. In fact, there's nearly a 75% chance that you don't land the first overall pick if you finish dead last. Look at what happened to the San Jose Sharks this year. But you get Gavin McKenna, you automatically have your replacement for Evgeny Malkin next year, right? He rides off into the sunset. Gavin McKenna is second-line center behind Sidney Crosby. And not only that, you have the ammunition at that point to go out there and actually build a team around him. If I told you next offseason, as of right now, the Penguins are slated to have $53.2 million in salary cap space, then if they trade Erik Karlsson, if they trade Bryan Rust, if they trade Rickard Rakell, that could be increased by, let's say, $15 million. 5 for Rust, 5 for Rakell, and conservatively, let's say 5 for Erik Karlsson, retaining 50%. You would then have $67 million to go out there and say, well, Crosby's at 8.7. Gavin McKenna is on a rookie deal. Well, let's, go out there and just spend some money. Not only that, you have the draft capital as well. Because even if you don't trade that draft capital to bring in players, you will have 22 top 3 picks between the 2025 draft and the 2028 draft as of right now. They picked 5 already. They're in the organization. And trust me, they looked pretty impressive at the development camp from everything I've been told. You have 17 more in the next 3 drafts. Whether you pick them or whether you trade them, that's a lot of ammunition for a rebuild. And if you can do that centered around a phenom out of Penn State, you mentioned it already. It's a stupid question, but it's fun to talk about considering where the Penguins are currently at. 2 more decades of success on the horizon for the Penguins, if that were to be the case, because Kyle Dubas is positioning them in a way that if the chips fall his way, he is going to look like the GM of the year for a decade plus, because he has, as long as he doesn't mess it up, he will have the ammunition, he will have the salary cap space, and he certainly has the talent if he gets Gavin McKenna.
You get Gavin McKenna. First of all, consider the amount of players that be more than willing to suddenly join the Penguins. With Gavin McKenna around. For what it's worth, I think Aiden Fink is going back to Penn State for another year because Gavin McKenna is going to be there. That's at least a big reason for it, the recent Hobey Baker finalist. With that, and also with that much salary cap space, that number you just read off there, at that point, I'm already looking at that free agent list. The names I just said, Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, and whoever else. Hey, Connor, I know there's every other team in the league, and I know you didn't. First of all, that's not happening. But hey, let's continue galaxy braining and having this off-season conversation here.
Please.
Suddenly, you're going, hey, Connor, we have Sidney Crosby around for another couple seasons. We just drafted Gavin McKenna. Here's $20 million per year. You probably go north of that. I don't know how far north you could, but here's the biggest contract the NHL has ever seen.
And they'd still have $47 million to toss around.
Exactly. Hey, Jack, just seeing what's up.
Yeah, that's the all-star team. No, but I mean, you could look at Connor McDavid and simply say, hey, listen, the only thing you've won in 10 years is when you were on that Four Nations team with Sidney Crosby. Imagine. No, I'm just kidding.
He won a Conn Smythe.
Listen, we are very much so hypocritical right now. Because we went off last week on the Canadian media saying Sidney Crosby is going to go somewhere else because he wants to. Again, here's the thing, though. We're saying it in jest. We are saying it full well, knowing that this is a joke. Yeah. Some people believe it out there. I'm not saying all Canadian media. I'm saying just some people out there truly believe that Sidney Crosby is going to force his way out of the city of Pittsburgh. Insane. But
not if Gavin McKenna's coming around.
Not if Gavin McKenna is coming to Pittsburgh. If Gavin McKenna comes to Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby is going to put the anchor down even further than it already is.
He'll sign for league min.
Okay, maybe not that much. I mean, listen, by the time Crosby's done playing, $8.7 million might be league min with the way we're headed. So
yeah, no kidding.
We'll have to wait and see with that. But that's going to do it for this episode of The Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this one. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out when you do that stuff, and it takes absolutely no time at all. 2 seconds. Just hit the subscribe button. Or if you're listening on the audio version, same thing. If you're on Spotify, just hit the follow button and hit the rate and review buttons too, if you could. If you're on Apple, of course, it is subscribe as well. But again, something that takes 2 seconds, costs you absolutely no money, and supports both Nick and myself. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.